Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you had a good night's sleep last night. Well, I'm happy to welcome you to the second day of the Cyber3 Conference Okinawa 2015. To start off day 2, I'd like to invite Dr. William Saito, Special Advisor to the Cabinet Office and Conference Chair for Cyber3. Dr. Saito, if you please.
Good morning. I hope you all had an exciting evening yesterday night. I know that there was a lot of aomori flowing, so I understand it's not too painful the next day, so thank you very much. I just wanted to thank everybody's hard work yesterday, and as of 1:40 a.m. This morning, we have this document here that was produced that summarizes the 3 tracks that were in discussion yesterday. And while many of you may not have had an opportunity to read it, what I look forward to is a discussion based on this. And so what I really look forward to today is I think this sets up really a great document for what the issues are and what we need to be worried about. What I'd like to see is if we can get today and today's discussion into how we need to address these issues, and to actually get into models where we can take actual actions and things, take-home messages, next actions where they're unique, outside the box, pushing the limits a little bit. And so today's sessions, after the first plenary discussion, will be where the various tracks will again get together, debate this paper. I didn't say this, I slept on it, I have better ideas. Maybe I want to expand on this a little bit more. No, that's completely wrong. Anything to really kind of work on this discussion within the tracks and to kind of spend the 90 minutes there to brush up what's on this document. And then subsequent to that, we will have a meeting of the chairs at this hall where we'll actually discuss the cross issues, because I really believe that these are really integrated, interrelated issues here that feed upon one another. And so I think we want to find really the essence of security and the common basis that ties all of this together. So what I hope here is at the end, when we come back to the plenary, have a vibrant discussion. Again, the conference is not over. We still have half a day left. Where we would like to have a discussion, a really provocative debate that involves the audience, and then really close it together. And this is important. So I've been asked a lot of questions about this and what happens to this. Yes, this will actually be summarized very, very quickly in a non-official draft format this afternoon. It will be published on the website soon thereafter. The official document, at least from the Japanese government, we hope to, and I like pushing the limits here, we hope to have an official document by the Japanese government by the end of this month. And so this, we're really moving on this. And then to kind of keep the pace on this, the unofficial draft will actually be presented to the Prime Minister on Monday. So we're on a very fast loop on this issue, and I look forward to everybody's debates here, because we don't want to get on the airplane and say, don't want to have the situation, I wish I said that, or I really don't feel comfortable with this idea. So I have 5 minutes, but things are going so smoothly, I have not much more to say. I thought I'd open up to questions. If anybody has any comments or concerns or any other issues before we get into the plenary, maybe we could take 1 or 2. We don't have to, but anybody? No? Okay. I won't belabor the issue and get into the plenary session. I think I'm very excited, delighted to have the next 2 speakers to the stage. This will be an interesting discussion here, and I think it'll be a frank and casual conversation. Let me introduce first our moderator, a good friend of mine, Miss Maoko Kotani. She is a very famous face in Japan and Japan broadcasting. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but she's been in broadcast for 20 years which means that she started at 15. And she's been doing this. She's the longest running person in anchoring a business TV show in Japan. And so you'll realize this through the moderation. So I'm proud to introduce first Ms. Mako Kotani, if you could please come up to the stage. And the second person, the interviewee, really needs no introduction. Mr. Eugene Kaspersky is obviously very famous in the security world. Many of you have his software on the computer. But let me leave it at that because I don't want to take away from the panel discussion here. But let me please introduce Mr. Eugene Kaspersky from Kaspersky Labs.
Okay, thank you, William. A very good friend of mine. And today, we became friends yesterday, right? Yeah. Mr. Eugene Kaspersky, he is, I'm sure you're aware of him. He's world-renowned cybersecurity expert, and he is also a very successful entrepreneur. You know, I was so surprised that he's such a genius that how I was really wondering how he began his career, and that was back in 1989 when his computer was infected, right, yeah, by Cascade virus, and he figured out how to solve it at that time. That was like 26 years ago. I mean.
If you do remember, first of all, ohayo gozaimasu.
Ohayo gozaimasu.
If you remember MS-DOS time, do you remember MS-DOS? Microsoft Disk Operating System. Do you remember the floppy disks? Yes? There were no USB, no CD, floppy disk. So my floppy disk was infected, so I got a virus infection to my computer on the floppy disk.
Mm-hmm.
So I was very curious what's that. So I disassembled the computer virus and I found, okay, that's interesting. And that changed my life. Well, that time I didn't know and I couldn't expect that it will change my life so good.
Yeah, and it's really fascinating to hear that he was so fascinated by looking at that virus and calculating the virus algorithm backwards, and collecting viruses fun. Your hobby, is it?
Yeah, that's right. For a couple of years, that was my hobby. It's like some people, they collect post stamps. Do you remember there was when you send the email, you have a post stamp. Sorry, not email, the paper email. You have a post stamp on that. So some people collected the post stamps. Maybe now it's very expensive. The old post stamps. I was collecting computer viruses. That was fun for me.
Right. So it's in your blood, I guess. Of course, today we are going to, you're going to really have to share with us your knowledge and everything. But before that, from my curiosity, there's one thing that I would like to ask you. There's such thing as hacker, but then we say black hat hacker and white hat hacker. Now we have two types of hackers. One is good, white one is good, and black one is considered as a bad one. Black one is considered as a bad one. And is it, on the personnel level, headhunting level, does it go back and forth? Is it vice versa?
It's a very good question about the good and bad hackers. But I don't remember any case when good people, they in the cyberspace, turn to the bad zone and in return. I don't remember that. So my belief is that people are good and bad, but there's also the gray zone. So people could migrate from the dark side to the gray, from the bright to gray and back, but not from the bright to dark. and in return. So I never heard about that.
Okay.
So from the dark side, they are most probably they migrate to prisons.
Yes, hopefully, yes, hopefully, yes.
And from the bright side, they migrate to the security companies.
Oh, like you. Okay, clear. Today, he's going to share with us very updated, first prioritized issue in the cyber world and how it could be solved. Now, I would like to ask you, my first question will be, amongst all the cyber threats, what are you mostly concerned? I heard that there are 3 elements, right?
Yeah. So they are, I have a definition, for years I have a definition of different types of cyber threats. And I split them into 3 categories.
Okay.
Cyber crime,
Yeah.
with the criminals, and their motivation is financial gain, so they want you money. Second, that's espionage.
Yeah, the middle one.
Yep,
Yes.
in the middle, yeah. So they want data, they want information, and cyber sabotage, which is not massive yet, but it's the most scary. That's attacks on the critical infrastructure. So the first kind of attack is just to steal your money. Second kind, espionage, it's steal information. Sometimes, in many cases, it's more important and more valuable than money. And the third type of attack is to kill, to destroy, to paralyze.
And so
Different kinds of the infrastructure.
Right. Well, cybercrime is mainly the money and individual and the nation, right?
Well, the cybercrime, they want money, and they don't care from which pocket they take the money from.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, cybercrime is getting more professional. So now we see not only the criminals which just steal your online or internet banking or mobile banking information, but they also able to attack even big enterprises like banks, and to have access to the even very current bank procedures.
Okay, so cybercrime and espionage, but you mostly would like to focus on sabotage today.
Yes.
And that is the system destruction, and pretty much the victims are private sectors and the nations, right? And what kind of things that can you think of? Or what kind of destructions there so far?
So I think that the sabotage is the most scary scenario, because we are facing the cybercrime issues for many years, so we know how to handle that, more or less. With espionage, it's more complicated, but okay, so it's possible to handle that. With cyber sabotage, unfortunately, we are not ready. It's about the private sector, it's about the states, the governments. We are not ready to handle this issue. But well, like the sabotage, it doesn't happen too frequently, so they have a much more criminal cases, espionage attacks than cyber sabotage. But I'm afraid in the future we will see more and more cyber sabotage, or call it cyber terrorism attacks.
So in the beginning, when internet was about to spread, you didn't have that much of a problem on that sabotage issue, right? And so day by day, as internet grows, cybercrime increases, sabotage becomes more and more serious. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, actually, the internet was invented in 1991. So this definition of cyber sabotage didn't exist that time, because nobody had this idea about attacks on the infrastructure, physical infrastructure, or critical digital infrastructure that time. I think that the experts, cybersecurity experts, came to this idea some early 2000s. And we kept silence because it was so scary. So we didn't share this information to public. We did it only to their government representatives, when we were talking to their agencies, to the government departments which are responsible for the national security, especially cybersecurity. Do you know when we started to talk about that to public? We keep it secret. We didn't talk about that to public. I remember the day when we started to talk public about that. That was the day when Hollywood released the movie about cyber terrorism.
When was this?
That was Die Hard 4.
Die Hard 4.
Do you remember the movie? It was exactly about attacks on the critical infrastructure. That was the movie about cyber sabotage, cyber terrorism. That day I said, okay, thanks to Hollywood. We can talk about that. And I was really, really depressed that day because the Hollywood, there was like explaining how to attack critical infrastructure.
Right. So that could lead to terrorism. That could lead to war.
Still, it's there is no international agreement on the definition of cyber war. There is a NATO documents about the cyber war, how NATO countries, they understand that.
Yeah.
And I agree, by the way, I agree with this, this document, but still there is no international agreement. So I follow the NATO definition. Cyber war is attack on a critical infrastructure sponsored by the state.
I see.
If there is no state behind the attack, that could be cyber terrorism. Or cyber sabotage.
Okay.
I still hope that we will never see the cases which we can classify as a cyber war, because that's too serious. We depend on the computer systems. They're everywhere. And this is the nightmare scenarios when our critical infrastructure is under attack.
Okay. And so the conditions of that may spread from the individuals. Now, I would like to go on to the next one. And does this got anything to do with the sabotage?
I like this slide because typically I call it Internet of Threats, because I am an IT security company. So I see both sides of the cyber world, both Internet of Things and Internet of Threats. So this slide is Internet of Things. Next is about Internet of Threats. So I see it from the dark side as well. So every device, doesn't matter how big the device is, I'm thinking about their functionality, about their innovations, about their how do we consume the functions of this device. But at the same time, I'm thinking about the risks. I'm thinking about the possible attacks on the device. And so I'm from IT security, so I have two halves of the brain. How to protect and how to design attack scenarios. It's necessary to protect. So Internet of Things, every time we see the new device, I'm thinking about the ways how to attack it. And if I don't see any scenarios which is built, device could be attacked, I say, okay, so it's not a problem. But now we see more and more systems which are connected to the internet, and they are vulnerable, and they could be used to steal money by cyber criminals, to gain the information by espionage tools, or maybe used in a cyber terrorism. Yeah.
Okay, so going on more in detail to sabotage.
By the way, do you know, I'm sorry to interrupt, a very short comment.
Okay.
By the way, do you know the world largest, most expensive, and highly connected device? The world largest, the most expensive, and highly connected device.
Could you give me the answer?
Yes.
Thank you.
CERN in Switzerland and France. They run protons with a speed of light there.
Anyone would like
It's the most complicated. The more, I don't know how many Nobel Prizes are made there. Highly connected, very expensive, but it's protected. Because it's so complicated that no one can attack it, because no one understands how does it work.
Okay.
So that's a huge device. I was there, I saw that, very impressive. I recommend you, if you have a time, you have opportunity to get there, to enjoy the world largest, highly internet connected, very expensive, many Nobel Prizes device. It's there, under the ground.
So that has nothing to do with sabotage.
It's also, it's not, because the only one power can destroy it, the power which created that, scientists. But there are no one person who can understand how does the whole device work. But there are many other devices which are less complicated, which we depend on, like power plants, transportation, healthcare, their urban facilities, everything around us. I'm pretty sure their power grid in this hotel, the elevators in this hotel, they are managed by computers. But
yes.
I'm pretty sure that the elevators in the hotel, they're quite safe because they are not connected to the internet. And the engineers, they check these devices and they connect the devices to their notebooks, not so frequently, and no one wants to destroy these elevators. What about more complicated devices like turbines at the power plants? The engineers, they travel, so they can bring the infected applications to protected perimeter. And this is example, this is the scenario how they could be affected. And then the result could be catastrophic.
I see. About this sabotage, relating to that, you have mentioned that the private sectors, mostly, major ones, they think most of the time they shut down their internet functions. And they say, well, you know, we're fine, because our internet are not connected 24/7. But, which is not true, you say?
The reality is, I was going to say, fortunately, unfortunately, it's not fortunately, unfortunately, that's reality. That many systems, they must be connected. For example, power plants, how to balance the power, especially in the big nations. You have to balance the power between regions, between power plants. How to do that? The power plants must be connected. So there is, for many systems, is no way to disconnect them completely. So they have to be connected at least a little bit. But at the same time, even the disconnected systems, it's not guaranteed, because the engineers, they travel. They bring new software, new updates. And actually, this is one of the main vectors how to attack the systems.
You found enormous amount of private sectors that are really open to...
Yeah, unfortunately, it's when I'm talking about the system which is completely disconnected from the internet and only engineers are traveling, the private sector companies, it's an ideal scenario. The most of cases, they are connected. And recently, we made the test on the Japanese networks. We just tried to see how many industrial systems they are connected to the internet. We found few hundreds, it was more than 600 industrial systems connected to the internet. And many of them, they are vulnerable because it's a public data, the vulnerability in some particular hardware and software. So they are connected, they are vulnerable. And even the middle level hacker, the hacker junior, can get access to these systems and can attack these systems.
Oh, okay.
And that's very, very serious issue.
Okay, and I would like you to share some of the major attacks, cyber attacks, and I think one of them is Stuxnet, right?
Oh, Stuxnet is a very old story. Do you remember Stuxnet?
Okay, which?
Sorry, Stuxnet was an old story, and this is example of the attack on the physical infrastructure. But in my mind, I see the three scenarios of attacks on the critical infrastructure. Attacks on the telecommunication, attacks on the critical data, and attacks on the physical infrastructure. And examples of these attacks are on the telecommunication. I think that the best attack was also there many years ago. Attack on Estonia, the internet blackout in Estonia in 2007. Do you remember? So this is example how it's possible to attack even the nation and to shut down the internet services there. Telecommunication is not only internet. There could be mobile networks. There could be professional networks. For example, power plants, they're connected to each other to balance the power. It's also the network. Is it possible to attack this kind of the network? Maybe yes. I don't know. I don't know about Japan, how does it work here, but maybe it's possible. So it's an attack on the telecommunication, attack on the critical data, attack on the South Korea in 2013, attack on the financial services, attack on the data, on the cyber data, but it's critical.
You've
Attack on the Saudi Aramco.
Okay.
Saudi Aramco, they
Well, with
the largest oil company, it was paralyzed for 2 weeks because they lost all the data. And examples of attack on the physical infrastructure. There was a Stuxnet 5 years ago. And last year we got a report from Germany. There was attack on the steel mill. They said, we still don't have the hard data. I don't have the technical details. We have only a report. And they said there was a cyber attack on a steel mill network, and the result was massive physical damage. Is it possible to do some similar with other systems? I'm afraid yes.
I see. So there are major attacks on everywhere around the world. And I guess in a lot of cases, they're very vulnerable in a way, and so they're not aware of having attacks, and so they're not prepared. But in some cases like FBI and CERT, S-E-R-T, I think I've heard that would function.
I'm afraid that now the cybersecurity agencies are responsible for the cybersecurity, sorry. They are mostly about cybercrime, and they are mostly ready to fight with the bad guys of the first category of the threats. If you remember, there was a cybercrime, espionage, and cyber sabotage. So they are ready to fight with the cybercrime, maybe a little bit with espionage. But I'm afraid not ready to fight with the cyber sabotage or cyber terrorism.
I see, okay. You have Kaspersky Lab has worked with Middle East CERT as well?
Yes, of course. In many nations.
Wow.
In Japan as well.
In Japan as well?
Yes, of course. Well, actually, we're the company which is developing the products, technologies to protect our customers. But at the same time, we are working very close with our agencies, the national agencies, which are responsible for the cybersecurity. It's a cyber police, CERTs, and other agencies.
Okay. So
international as well, like Interpol.
Interpol. Yes, Interpol, it will be Mr. Nakatani, right? Mainly. So, but you are collaborating with them. And are you here? Okay. Yeah. You guys are collaborating, right? And so, which sounds good. That you both are going to solve many of the cyber attacks. Now, we would like to go on to the.
Now it's an optimistic slide.
Yeah, optimistic. But when I asked you about the solution, you've mentioned about these 3 elements, and we have like 5 minutes to go. Yep. Should we wrap it up? Education. Mainly, who do we need to educate, do you think?
Well, actually, in the very beginning of this session, there was a paper presented. William, thank you for that. And actually, the education also the very first point in this paper. And I am 100% agree that education is a key point in a cyber security, in a cyber resilience strategy. But what's missed here in this paper, I think, IT security experts, the university streams to graduate IT security staff. Because unfortunately, to make the cyber world more safe and more secure, we need more IT security engineers. And there is no nations in the world which have enough of IT security staff. So every time I have an opportunity to talk to people, especially to the government representatives, I all the time say, please invest more into the IT security education in universities. We need more IT security experts. We don't have enough. They're expensive. If it's going the same way, the IT security expert will be paid like a football players, the stars, because there are not many. And we need more and more every year. And every nation, not only for the private companies, for international, for global private companies, but for the national needs as well. So please, Japan, invest more into IT security education.
In the universities or?
Japan, do you listen?
In universities or in what kind of in what sort of way to educate for
The IT security streams to explain to learn them about their configuration of operating system, application, how to do it in a safe way, how to find the vulnerable places, how to do the penetration test, how to make the security audit, and many other things, but unfortunately we don't have time.
Yeah. But getting
Call me, I will help you. We have, honestly speaking, we have the education, cybersecurity education streams, we have the programs for the universities, and we cooperate with many universities around the world to help them to build their own education
Okay,
streams.
so if you would like to
Call me.
If you'd like to educate your employees, please call Mr. Kaspersky. Okay, go on to next. Would be law enforcement and international cooperation. I think you have mentioned about the police about this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah?
Well, actually, the massive threat right now is cybercrime. The most dangerous is cyber sabotage. And what's going on in these two areas is that good news is that the cyber police departments in many nations, they're getting better and better. They're more professional, so they're able to investigate the cybercrime. But unfortunately, still is a lack of communication. Still, we see the cases, there is a disbalance of the police forces. They are working in different countries with a different speed. It's a little bit wrong. I want more criminals to be arrested. We need, we need to control population of cybercrime. The non-necessary guys have to be in a zoo, you know, behind the bars.
Okay, but
So that's about cybercrime. Sorry. And talking about cyber sabotage and cyber terrorism, I see there very high demand of strong international cooperation on the government level. Because I think that the best way is to have a strong cooperation and joining forces against cyber terrorism, which is just a question of time when we see more and more attacks on a critical infrastructure.
well, Interpol is kind of spreading out, right? And
Yep.
so it's going to function eventually, and as well as NISC in Japan. Do you think it's
Yeah.
pretty much functioning as well?
Unfortunately, yes, it's going on, but unfortunately, it's going on so slowly. The first time I said Internet Interpol, I did it in 2003. Interpol opened their cyber division in Singapore last year. So it takes 10 years from the idea, from their strategy defined to their realization. I'm afraid that we can't be so slow. I think that the governments, they have to talk to each other to find the agencies responsible for their national cybersecurity and to make these agencies to talk to each other, to build a very strong international cooperation.
As soon as possible. Rapidly.
I'm optimistic. I hope
Okay.
that this cooperation will be built before the cyber terrorism will be massive.
Okay. Do we have time for talking about the roles? Maybe we should just skip that.
Yeah, and actually, I think that the last point is products and technologies. There are three things I see, the three vectors of development we need to protect the cyberspace: education, law enforcement, and products and technologies. Yes, we do have technologies. We understand how to make this world more safe and more secure. And there are easy ways how to do it. And unfortunately, to protect the critical infrastructure, it's more complicated.
About the regulation and deregulation, you were saying that if you regulate more, then you lose the business chances for the private sectors, as well as the other way around, right? So,
Unfortunately, that's a philosophical question. The balance between regulation and the reality. I'm afraid if I'm talking about consumer devices, regulation is a wrong thing there because it will kill competition. But if you're talking about critical infrastructure, it's the must to have a strict regulation in this area. Strict government regulation the systems and the penalties if the government departments, if the private sector doesn't follow this regulation. I do my best to explain that to their government representatives, to the industrial sector, because I see it's the only way how to make the cyberspace more safe and more secure.
Okay. Go on to next. Technology.
Yeah. So the technologies, I split them in also 3 different categories. Consumers and the small businesses, enterprises which process the critical data, and physical infrastructure. And there are different policies have to be applied there.
Yeah.
The most easy is to protect individuals and small businesses because they are targeted by cybercrime only.
Is it, you've mentioned about remote hijacking of a car. Is it really possible?
The car is also, they are modern cars, they are also very connected devices. It's a computer system which manages your car. You think you drive your car. No, it's a computer drives the car. And you send the request to the computer system. Unfortunately, there are examples, there are proofs that it's possible to hack the car's computers as well. It's happening, and it's not only there, like, it's becoming reality. So I'm afraid in the future we will see more and more attacks on the different kinds of Internet of Things.
But you will have the solution for that.
Of course, we will have a solution because, well, it's a high demand of the security. Well, every time we see the new device, my engineers, they are thinking about, is the devices hackable? Can the bad guys have some profit from hacking the device? Every time we see, do we need to design the protection for the new device? If yes, we will do it. For example, now we are waiting for the next type of the attack. It's a smart TV. Because I think that's the next device under attack. Computers are under attack. Smartphones, yes, they are. The next is a smart TV. So we are ready for smart TV. So we have the prototype of the security system to protect smart TV. Cars, yes, we are working with the car vendors to guarantee the extra security. And we're working with the companies which develop software system for the major car manufacturers.
Okay, so technology is really significant, I guess. I was going to open to the audience, but I guess we are out of time. And I guess I wouldn't just, I wanted to ask you about Japan's condition, but I guess we'll forget about that because this is an international summit, and we're going to have to talk about global things, right?
Well, actually, we're living in a cyberspace, and we don't want to get back. So we have to find the ways how to design the cyberspace in a more safe and more secure way. And all the time I'm talking about the worst case scenarios because I'm working in IT security for 26 years. So I have the professional disease, I'm paranoid. But some people say that paranoia is the best way to survive.
Right, okay.
So I'm paranoid, but at the same time I'm optimistic. We will survive.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much all.
Arigatou gozaimasu.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kaspersky and Ms. Kotani. Thank you.